Boy J coming at you live Tuesday evening, continuing our series with the book Who Moved My Cheese by Dr. Spencer Johnson. And today on Instagram, I have a crazy filter going on. It's like the zodiac sign something, and it's very starry. Um, so last weekend, before we headed off into the weekend, I uh, finished off with how Hall started to use his imagination to empower himself to draw the visual of exactly what it is. Hey, Debbie. Hi, Justin Young. Good to have you. The visual of a visual image in his imagination of exactly what it is that he wanted. And he started to get really excited about it. And he started to take action to go after what he wanted, which was to find new cheese inside the maze. And he left a note for his friend, him, and he wrote, "If you do not change, you can become extinct." So I'll continue. Then Hall stuck his head out and peered anxiously into the maze, right? Because now he's ready to do something different that he hasn't done in a while, so he's a little anxious, right? He thought about how he gotten himself into this cheeseless situation. He had believed that there may not be any cheese in the maze, or he may not find it. Such fearful beliefs were immobilizing and killing him. Hall smiled. He knew Hem was wondering, who moved my cheese? But Hall was wondering, why didn't I get up and move with the cheese sooner? And let me ask you all, how many times have you gotten stuck in something knowing that you should have changed, but you were hoping that things were gonna change for you and you lost the train, right? You missed the boat. So so when you think about that, next time where you catch yourself trying to like wait it out or pray and hope that things are gonna change for you, you're gonna want to um, you're gonna want to do something different. Okay? As he started out into the maze, Hall looked back to where he had come from and felt its comfort. He could feel himself being dropped back into familiar territory, even though he hadn't found cheese here for some time. Hall became more anxious and wondered if he really wanted to go out into the maze. He wrote a saying on the wall ahead of him and stared at it for some time. And let me ask you all, what would you do if you weren't afraid? How many times, hey Tony, good to have you, Ashran, good to have you, brother. What would you do if you weren't afraid? Because let's admit it, don't we all get scared of doing things that we haven't done before? Don't we all get scared of like stepping into the unknown? But ask yourself, what would you do if you didn't have that fear? He thought about it. He knew sometimes some fear can be good. When you are afraid things are going to get worse, if you don't do something, it can prompt you into action. But it is not good when you are so afraid that it keeps you from doing anything. Check out the bomb that he just dropped here. When you're afraid that things are gonna get worse and it prompts you into doing something about it, it is great. But if you have too much fear and it paralyzes you, then you have to really check out what your next move is going to be, and you have to bust a move regardless, right? He looked to his right, to the part of the maze where he had never been, and felt the fear. Then he took a deep breath, turned right into the maze, and jogged slowly into the unknown. The author is daring you to take a deep breath when you're scared, when you're afraid, and just take that first step of faith. As he tried to find his way, Hall worried at first that he might have waited too long in Cheese Station C. He hadn't had any cheese for so long that he was now weak. It took him longer and it was more painful than usual to get through the maze. He decided that if he ever got the chance again, he would get out of his comfort zone stress, get out of his comfort zone, and adapt to change sooner. It would make things easier. Then Hall smiled a weak smile as he thought, better late than never, and better late than never it is, my friends. During the next several days, Hall found a little cheese here and there, but nothing that lasted very long. He had hoped to find enough cheese to take some back to him and encourage him to come out into the maze. But Hall didn't feel confident enough yet. He had to admit he had found it confusing in the maze. Things seemed to have changed since the last time he was out here. And things change very fast. Yes, they do. Just when he thought he was getting ahead, he would get lost in the corridors. It seemed his progress was two steps forward and one step backward. It was a challenge, but he had to admit that being back in the maze, hunting for cheese, wasn't nearly as bad as he feared it might be. Because fear only lives inside of you, and you only make it as big as you want it to make it. As time went on, he began to wonder if it was realistic for him to expect to find new cheese. He wondered if he had bitten off more than he could chew. Then he laughed, realizing that he had nothing to chew on at that moment. Well, it was a weak joke. Whenever he started to get discouraged, he reminded himself that what he was doing, as uncomfortable as it was at that moment, was in reality much better than staying in the cheeseless situation. He was taking control rather than simply letting things happen to him. Think about it. Think about it, everybody. Um, Bujo con go. Yeah, that's right, huh? Bujo con go. Because think about it. How many times have you drawn yourself back because it was gonna be an uncomfortable situation, only to find yourself rotting to hell exactly where you are, complaining about everything and how things are getting worse and worse, and you're not willing to take control, right? Do not let things happen to you. Make your things, uh, make things happen for you by taking control. Hey, it's a filter. Don't blame me, guys. Bear with me. We're almost done. Then he reminded himself if Sniff and Scurvy could move on, so could he. Later, as Hall looked back on things, he realized that the cheese at Cheese Station C had not just disappeared overnight, as he had once believed. The amount of cheese that he had been the amount of cheese that had been there toward the end had been getting smaller, and what was left had grown old. It didn't taste as good. Mold may even have begun to grow on the old cheese, although he hadn't noticed it. He had to admit it, however, that if he had wanted to, he probably could have seen what was coming, but he didn't. It is all a choice. That's what the author is alluding to. You have a choice to remain with smaller supplies, with things growing old and not tasting as good, and even getting like moldy and turning a blind eye to it, or you can start to see the changes that are coming, adjust to them, and move forward. Hall not only realized that the change probably would not have taken him by surprise if he had been watching what was happening all along and if he had anticipated change. Maybe that's what Sniff and Scurry had been doing. He decided he would stay more alert from now on. He would expect change to happen and look for it. He would trust his basic instincts to sense when change was going to occur and be ready to adapt to it. He stopped for a rest and wrote on the wall of the maze, smell the cheese often so you know when it is getting old, and this is a major gem. The author is inviting you guys to take matters into your own hands. Always stay alert, smell for the changes, get a sense for how things are moving in your environment, and be always on your toes and willing to go after change. And you change so that you adjust and you adapt so that you actually have a better chance of achieving that which you want to achieve, because things in this world are changing way faster than any of us could have ever imagined. And I'm going to repeat once again, Eric Hoffer. In times of change, the learners will inherit the earth, while the learned will be beautifully equipped to deal with a world that no longer exists. So you make a choice. With that, guys, much love. Thank you for being here. It was your boy Jay. Peace out.